Welcome once again to our 12th session of our Lessons in Living Character Seminar. As always, I hope that you have enjoyed your discussion groups wherever you are. And from that process, you're beginning to understand a lot of good concepts that I believe will help you in the teaching of children character qualities, and also will benefit your own personal life. For this next session, let's turn to page 22. And we're going to discuss patterns of learning. What we're going to talk about in this session has to do with the way the Hebrew people learned, or the people from which we get the Word of God, the Bible, and how the Greek people learned, how their way of thinking was. So let's look on page 22. Patterns of learning. Hebrew versus Greek thinking and learning. As we said before, as you get done with this lesson, you can go and review these lessons. You can write out things, comments on the side in the lines there, and you can also see how this continues to apply to your teaching. Because at the end of this, I'm going to ask you a very important question. Whether you are a Greek teacher, form of teaching, or whether you are a Hebrew way of teaching. So let's turn there to page 23. You will see on 23, and I will read this here, and we can go through these little PowerPoints here, explaining the difference between Greek and Hebrew learning. Page 23. In the world of Paul and of Jesus Christ, there were two very different views of thinking and learning. Both of them began with the concept of knowing truth, but each approached the idea of understanding and knowing truth from two very different viewpoints. Both of them knew that you could know something, but the way that they approached understanding and learning truth was two very different ways. First of all, next slide, the Greek way of thinking. First, the Greek way of thinking was that to know truth, you only had to have a mental knowledge of the truth that you were studying. In that way, you could know many things through looking at things, hearing about them, talking about them, even writing papers and documents about them. The Greek people said that if you had a mental knowledge, you knew the truth. So that's the way the Greek people learned. Only you just have to have a mental knowledge about something. You have to know something mentally, meant that you know it. You can say, I know this because I studied this. I looked at it, I read it, I know about it. But now the Hebrew people were different. As we said, they had a different way of thinking about knowing something. The Hebrew way of thinking and learning was approached quite differently. To the Hebrew person, a person did not, quote, know the truth until they had experienced the truth. That means that it wasn't just like the Greek person knowing the truth, but they had to do the truth. They didn't believe they knew the truth until they had experienced. We would say they've applied the truth to their life. Let's go next page, 24. For the Hebrew person, it was not only necessary to think about the truth, to look at the truth, to hear about the truth, even to talk about it, or even to write papers and documents about it, but one had to know truth by personally experiencing truth or walking in the truth. Right? Now we'll talk a little bit more later how we see this in the life of Jesus, right? Next slide there on 24, today's view of learning. And this is very important for us to understand. Today's view of learning. And I want you to identify this, if this is true, where you live. In today's world, we have much of the Greek mindset in teaching and learning. In other words, next slide, we believe we can know someone or something if we know facts about the person or something. We believe we can have an intimate knowledge of something or someone without having an experiential knowledge with that something or someone. See, that's a Greek mindset. That's knowing something, but not experiencing that truth in our life. Next page, 25, an intellectual knowing. What is the conclusion? We can be content with teaching the Greek approach to truth, which is an intellectual point of view. We can hear maybe a sermon, we can talk about something, and we can say, somebody says, do you know this? Do you know, for instance, do you know something about being a generous person, or do you know something about being an honest person? I will say, yeah, I know all about that. But have you experienced that truth in your life? Have we experienced that personally, where that truth has been lived out in our life? And this is what we are talking about. And this is the approach that we have for teaching children character. That what is the result of only an intellectual knowing? There on page 25. Our lives are not changed except by living in obedience to the Word of God. See, as character teachers, we want to be teachers that are teaching from the Hebrew mindset, the Hebrew way of teaching, not the Greek way. We don't want to just give children concepts, even tell nice stories, but we want to lead them through to apply these principles in their life. And these lessons that we have written have worksheets, and we will go, as we mentioned, we'll go through with you and teach you how to take the concept and to walk with the child so they can apply it in a very lovely, simple way into their own life. So we say there in the middle of 25, what is our goal in this teaching program? To glorify God by applying godly principles of Christ-like character to our life. Okay, that's our first goal. And then next, we are to teach by example and words, godly principles of Christ-like character to children. And then lastly, we are to help children to teach others these same principles by their example and words. Now, in the previous session, we talked about Paul and Timothy, right? Paul says to Timothy, Timothy, take the things I've taught you and teach them to reliable men or faithful men and women. We would say, if you're a woman, this would relate to you, to teach faithful women, who in turn can teach others. So this is the approach that we want to do also in teaching character to children. As a child begins to apply this in their life, you want them to begin to talk about what they're experiencing. Because as they internalize what they are learning, and you will see the change come into their life. This will only reinforce the truth more. So for instance, you have a concept on being attentive. They begin to apply it, you reinforce it, they begin to talk about the change, and this only reinforces it more. And it gives you opportunity again to reinforce that in their life. So that is your assignment. I would like you to seriously think about that assignment, about getting someone that would be your Timothy, that you can teach this material to. And you can share maybe over coffee or invite them to your house. And you can begin to teach them these important principles. Maybe a mother, maybe if you're a man, it would be a father. And they in turn can begin to teach perhaps even their family. And so what you are learning here can go beyond this class, out into your community, out into the homes. And you can begin to see many people benefit from these principles that we are learning here. So once again, go into your groups. And the question that I want you to discuss, as we mentioned before, this is to be, I want you to discuss this question. Am I a Greek teacher or a Hebrew teacher? Let me explain to you. A Greek teacher would be one that perhaps if you are teaching in a Sunday school, you would give a story, you would give a song, which are all good, which would give a memory verse, but there would be no personal application, no talking about how this has affected your life, or no illustration. You're not illustrating how to put this into your own life. A Hebrew teacher instead would be someone that is a Hebrew method teacher, would be not only teaching the concepts, but also teaching the child how to apply it into their life. So perhaps you can ask yourself the question, am I a Hebrew teacher or am I a Greek teacher? And we want to be sure that the way we are teaching these character principles are with a Hebrew mindset, an application mindset. Remember before in a previous session, I gave you 3 words. Do you remember what those 3 words were? Perhaps you remember. But I want you to remember these 3 words. If you can understand and remember these 3 things. Information is the first word. Application is the second word. Transformation is the third word. Let's say this together. Information, application, transformation. That's the Hebrew approach to character learning. So once again, go in your groups and to discuss with one another. Am I a Hebrew teacher, a Hebrew method teacher when I teach children? Or am I a Greek teacher? Be honest, because only when you're honest where you are will you be able to change or to ask others to help you to change the style of your teaching. We'll see you in the next session. God bless you.